In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit, one God, amen. My beloved in Christ, you did not stumble into this moment. Heaven scheduled it. The very fact that your spirit was drawn here is proof that God is speaking directly to you in this hour. You are standing at the threshold of a supernatural shift, a divine wealth transfer, a breakthrough that has been forming in the unseen long before you ever prayed for it. This is not coincidence. This is alignment. This is your Kairos moment. Chosen one. Heaven has been watching you. Your obedience, your sacrifice, your quiet. Yes, in the dark has reached the throne room. And today the Father leans in with delight. You are not here to be inspired. You are here to be activated. Something in the Spirit has already begun to move on your behalf. The pressure you felt was prophecy birthing. The shaking in your atmosphere was not warfare, it was preparation. The word says in Habakkuk 2:3 that the vision is for an appointed time, and though it tries, it will surely come. Chosen one, that time is now. Your appointed moment has collided with heaven's perfect timing. Open your heart, steady your spirit, and listen closely. What you're about to hear carries the sound of your next season, chosen one. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to release into your spirit carries weight. This is not a casual message, not emotional comfort, not religious noise. This is revelation. Heaven laughed in joy over you. And that laughter was not punishment, not mockery, not disbelief. It was delight. Pure, holy, overwhelming delight. And the reason heaven responded that way is because you finally did something you didn't even realize was monumental in the Spirit. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't impressive by earthly standards. But in the eyes of God, it shook the heavens. You made a decision, a quiet, costly, deeply obedient decision that no one on earth may ever recognize. A decision that required trust when your heart was tired, faith when your emotions were numb, courage when nothing made sense. And the moment you did, a spiritual signal was sent upward like a beam of light piercing the darkness. Heaven saw it. The angels recorded it. And God Himself responded with joy. Chosen one, don't underestimate that moment. You may think it was small, but heaven called it significant. You may think your obedience was fragile, but God called it powerful. You may think you barely held it together, but heaven said, that's my child. That's why everything in your spirit feels different right now. That's why your atmosphere feels strange, why your intuition feels sharper, why your dreams feel heavier, why your emotions feel stirred. Something shifted the moment you obeyed. You didn't just make a choice, you activated a prophecy. I'm telling you this with the honesty of someone who has walked through similar seasons. I know what it's like to obey God quietly while life feels loud. I know what it's like to trust when nothing is changing. To give when it hurts, to forgive when anger feels justified. I've had those moments where the obedience felt invisible, where it felt like no one cared, nothing responded, and heaven was silent. But later, when breakthrough finally came, I realized those hidden moments were the very keys that unlocked everything. That's why I can look at you with spiritual certainty and say, you have done something heaven cannot ignore. Your obedience told God something that your prayers couldn't even express. That you trust Him beyond comfort, beyond logic, beyond convenience. You trusted His voice more than your emotions, more than the voices around you, more than the fear trying to grip your spirit. And that trust is what triggered heaven's laughter of joy. To help you understand this, imagine a toddler taking their first step. They're unsteady, wobbly, unsure, and yet they step forward anyway because love is calling them. A parent doesn't critique the wobble. A parent doesn't analyze the stumble. They laugh a laugh full of joy, wonder, pride, and delight. That is what God felt over you. You took a step not perfect, not polished, not powerful in your eyes, but pure, and purity moves him. That is why things feel like they are rearranging around you spiritually. You may not see visible changes yet, but your spirit senses movement. Your discernment is rising. Your inner world is shifting. Your eyes are opening to signs you used to overlook. Your heart is softening in areas that felt rigid. Your strength is returning in places that felt depleted. This is what happens when heaven responds. Chosen one, your obedience created momentum. It signaled to the heavens that you are stepping into readiness. Readiness for breakthrough. Readiness for elevation. Readiness for promotion. Readiness for the divine wealth transfer assigned to your destiny. Yes, this obedience is connected to provision. You may not realize it, but every act of surrender aligns you with divine resources. When your heart shifts, heaven's distribution opens. When your posture aligns, heaven's release begins. You are standing in that release right now. Your obedience has already begun rewriting what's coming. It has already redirected paths. It has already overturned delays. It has already exposed what was blocking you. You stepped into a divine timeline without even knowing it. That's why you feel anticipation without evidence. That's why you feel movement without clarity. That's why your spirit feels like it's leaning forward into something you can't yet see. This is what happens right before breakthrough. Chosen one. Heaven didn't laugh because you finally became perfect. Heaven laughed because you finally became aligned. You finally responded to God's whisper. You finally obeyed without needing confirmation. You finally surrendered something that was pulling on your spirit. And now what you did in secret is echoing in heaven. Your life is not the same. Your path is not the same. Your future is not the same. Something holy has begun. Something irreversible has started its course. Something divine is already moving toward you. Chosen one, prepare yourself. Your obedience has opened the door. Heaven has been waiting to release. Chosen one. Now that your spirit has stepped into alignment, you need to understand the magnitude of what that alignment has activated in the unseen realm. When heaven laughs in joy, it is not a soft reaction. It is not symbolic. It is not sentimental. Heaven's laughter is a spiritual event. It is the sound that signals the release of something long prepared, long preserved, long withheld until the moment your heart finally matched heaven's timing. That moment, your quiet obedience triggered a divine sequence that has already begun unfolding around your life, even if your physical eyes haven't caught up yet. You didn't just obey. You crossed a spiritual threshold. You stepped out of an old cycle that tried to hold you, shape you, and limit you. And you stepped into a new dimension that your spirit has sensed for months, but couldn't fully describe. Heaven laughed because heaven saw what you could not see. You are finally ready. This readiness did not come from perfection. It came from surrender. It came from the silent battles you fought alone. It came from the nights you cried and still whispered, God, I trust you. It came from the days you could have walked away but chose to stay within God's boundaries. It came from the moments when pride wanted the last word, but humility chose peace. It came from your willingness to forgive when forgiveness felt unfair to give. When your resources felt limited to believe. When everything around you whispered doubt. Heaven watched each of these quiet choices. And when that final decision, the one you thought was small, aligned everything within you, heaven erupted in joy. Chosen one. You must understand something deeply. Heaven laughs only when heaven moves. That joyful laughter was a spiritual announcement. It meant the cycle of testing has reached completion. The season of internal refining has done its work. The hidden pruning has produced fruit. The delays that frustrated you for so long were not punishment. They were preparation. But now, because your heart shifted, The season has shifted with it. You are no longer being prepared. You are now being positioned. A divine positioning is happening around your name, your purpose, and your destiny. You may not see the pieces moving, but you can feel the atmosphere changing. That sensation is not anxiety. It is acceleration. This is the part where many people misunderstand their own journey. They feel internal change before they see external evidence, and they assume nothing is happening. But the chosen ones, the spiritually awake ones, understand that the inner shift always comes first. The heart enters the new season before the hands touch it. I lived this myself. There were seasons when everything around me looked stagnant, unmoving, unchanging. Yet inside me, something was shifting. Something was waking up. Vision felt sharper. Hope rose without explanation. Discernment heightened. And then suddenly the physical world caught up. Doors opened. Opportunities, aligned resources appeared. And what once felt impossible became effortless. Chosen one, you are standing in that same divine rhythm. Now your obedience has authorized acceleration. Where once you moved slowly, you will now move swiftly. Where once things resisted you, they will now respond to you. Where once you faced walls, you will now encounter open gates. The spiritual momentum you feel is real. Heaven is speeding up what used to take months or years. Not because you pushed harder, but because your heart is finally aligned with what heaven has wanted to release for a long time. This acceleration is not random. It is connected to a divine transfer. Something that belonged to your destiny but was delayed, withheld, or blocked is now being released. Resources, provision, favor, opportunities, wisdom, influence, stability. Some of this will appear financially. Some will appear relationally. Some will appear emotionally. Some will appear in the form of new paths, new assignments, new voices entering your life at the exact right moment. Divine transfer comes when heaven identifies a heart that can be trusted. Your obedience proved to heaven that you are trustworthy with what's coming. You are moving from surviving to stewarding, from scraping to receiving, from hoping to harvesting, from waiting to walking. This is why heaven laughed. You finally stepped into a spiritual level that matches your future. You didn't even know how close you were. You didn't know that a single act of obedience would break open a sequence that had been locked for years. But heaven knew. Heaven watched. Heaven waited. And when you finally made that decision, heaven responded with joy. Understand this. Heaven's laugh was not about the act itself. It was about what the act revealed about your heart. It showed heaven that the version of you they have been developing is now here. More stable, more surrendered, more spiritually grounded, more refined, more ready. That laugh was heaven's confirmation. This one is prepared. Release what belongs to them. Chosen one. Everything around you is about to reflect the change that has already happened within you. The shift inside you has rewritten the landscape before you. What is coming is not temporary or symbolic. It is foundational. It is structural. It is destiny level. And it all began the moment heaven laughed in joy over your obedience. My chosen one. Now that heaven has begun positioning you, it is time for you to understand why your journey looked the way it did. Nothing in your past was random. Nothing you endured was pointless. Every season of waiting, every storm that struck your heart, every betrayal that cut deep, every moment of isolation that made you question your worth, each one carried divine intelligence. You were never being punished. You were being shaped. You were being prepared for a level of purpose and blessing your old self could not have carried. Look back for a moment, not to reopen wounds, but to recognize patterns. Think about the nights you cried in silence, the battles you survived without applause, the days when exhaustion sat heavy on your chest. Yet something inside you still whispered, keep going. You didn't realize it then. But those moments were building spiritual muscle. Your endurance was being stretched. Your discernment was being sharpened. Your voice was being formed. Heaven was preparing you for rooms, responsibilities, and revelations you were not yet ready to hold. Chosen one, heaven saw everything you carried quietly. Heaven saw your heartbreak, your wrestling, your confusion, your disappointment. Heaven saw when people misunderstood you, used you, judged you, underestimated you. And heaven allowed those experiences not to break you, but to break what was blocking you. People who left you were not part of your next season. Environments that pushed you away were not equipped to handle your anointing. Relationships that ended were not strong enough to carry the weight of where God was taking you. What felt like rejection was actually redirection. Your isolation was not abandonment, it was incubation. God hid you because He was healing you. God separated you because He was saturating you. God removed noise so you could finally hear His voice without distortion. You needed space for your identity to shift. You needed distance from draining voices so your spirit could rise. You needed silence so your assignment could speak. While you thought everything was falling apart, heaven was actually building the foundation for your next elevation. And now, because heaven laughed with joy over your obedience, the hiding season is ending. The curtain is lifting. The spiritual fog is clearing. You are stepping into a version of yourself that even you have not fully seen yet. Strength is emerging. Clarity is awakening. Confidence is returning. You are becoming the person your battles were shaping all along. This is why your spirit feels different, lighter, more aware, more expectant. The wilderness refined you. Obedience activated you. And now heaven is positioning you. But with this positioning comes responsibility. Heaven does not elevate without purpose. You are not being blessed so you can sit in comfort. You are being blessed because others will be healed through your story. You are being elevated because your victory will become someone else's roadmap. You are being trusted with influence because your heart has proven faithful in obscurity. Your assignment is not small. Your calling is not casual. Your purpose is not passive. What God is doing in you is meant to reverberate beyond you. Chosen one. This is why your warfare was intense. You were not fighting random battles. You were fighting for spiritual territory. You were battling for your lineage, for your future, for the doors. Your obedience would open. Sometimes the pressure felt unbearable, but you never quit. You didn't realize it, but every time you kept standing, heaven took note. Every time you chose God over comfort, you gained spiritual authority. Every time you forgave when anger felt more justified, heaven recorded it as growth. Every time you chose purity, integrity, and truth when no one was watching, heaven whispered, "This one can be trusted." This is why the divine transfer is coming. Because your character has been proven in private, heaven releases increase where hearts are stable, surrendered, and aligned. You are stepping into a season where you will no longer fight for the same things you once begged God for. Provision will find you. Opportunities will locate you. People will be drawn to you without knowing why. Favor will go before you and settle places you haven't even entered yet. Your presence will carry weight because your process carried pain. But understand this, you must stay grounded. Elevation requires humility. Breakthrough requires stewardship. Abundance requires discipline. Do not forget where you came from, but also do not shrink back into who you used to be. You are no longer the wounded version of yourself. You are the refined version, the strengthened version, the aligned version, chosen one. Your life is shifting because your spirit has shifted. What heaven laughed over is now becoming what earth will witness. Your obedience unlocked the next chapter, and every piece of your past is now falling into place with divine purpose. You are stepping into destiny fully prepared. Chosen one. Now that you understand the purpose behind your past, you must also recognize what is unfolding around you in this very moment. Whether you feel prepared or not, Whether your surroundings have shifted or not, heaven has already shifted its posture toward you. A divine announcement has gone forth in the Spirit with your name on it. Something has been activated over your life that cannot be undone, slowed, or silenced. The moment heaven laughed over your obedience, the atmosphere of your entire journey realigned. That heavenly laughter was not merely a reaction. It was a decree, a spiritual declaration that said, this one is ready. Move them forward, chosen one. This means the season you're stepping into will not resemble anything you've lived through before. The terrain beneath your feet is changing. The energy around your name is changing. The weight of your words is changing. You're walking into a chapter where the things that once resisted you will begin responding to you. The environments that once overlooked you will begin to acknowledge you. The doors that once stayed locked will open not by your strength, but by heaven's permission. What once felt impossible will begin to feel inevitable. And it is not because you became more talented or more deserving overnight. It's because heaven shifted your spiritual position. You are no longer walking as the wounded version of yourself. You are walking as the refined version, the aligned version, the version that survived the wilderness, embraced obedience, and grew spiritual roots deep enough to carry real destiny. Heaven celebrates what humans overlook, and your quiet transformation has drawn heaven's attention in a way you cannot yet comprehend. Because of that, a divine acceleration has begun. When acceleration begins, time does not behave normally. Opportunities begin to move towards you. People appear at the right moment. Conversations shift your direction unexpectedly. Thoughts gain clarity in ways you didn't force. What once took years begins unfolding in days, and you may feel overwhelmed, not because you're unprepared, but because heaven is speeding up what was delayed. Acceleration always begins internally before it manifests externally. That pressure you feel, it's not anxiety, it's spiritual expansion. That stirring in your spirit, it's the vibration of new territory calling your name. That sense of transition you can't explain. It's heaven adjusting your path because the season you've been praying for is finally approaching. Chosen. One expansion is not gentle. It stretches you into versions of yourself you haven't met yet. It forces you to abandon old patterns, old cycles, old fears, old thinking, old wounds, and old identities. The version of you that survived the wilderness cannot be the version that steps into fullness. What God is placing in your hands requires a renewed mind, a strengthened heart, and a matured spirit. You may have noticed old insecurities resurfacing, not because you're regressing, but because heaven is uprooting them fully. You may have noticed old triggers rising, not to torment you, but to liberate you. You may have noticed emotions stirring in unpredictable ways, not because you're unstable, but because God is reorganizing your internal structure. Destiny always disrupts comfort. And in this disruption, heaven is preparing you for influence. Influence that will require emotional intelligence. Influence that will require spiritual discernment. Influence that will require humility, authority, clarity, and courage. You are not entering a season of comfort. You are entering a season of purpose. Purpose that carries weight. Purpose that demands maturity. Purpose that will call you higher than you've ever gone. Chosen one. This is why your warfare was intense. You weren't fighting random demons. You were fighting for your next dimension. You were battling for territory your bloodline has never possessed. You were contending for doors your ancestors could not open. You were pushing through ceilings no one before you had the strength to break. And now that you have passed the test of obedience, heaven is rewarding you with access to wisdom, access to favor, access to resources, access to relationships, access to opportunities that align with your calling. And here is another truth. Your life is no longer just about you. You are entering a legacy season where what God does in you will outlive you. Your breakthrough will become the foundation someone else builds on. Your healing will become the liberation someone else receives. Your transformation will become the confirmation someone else needs. You are becoming a generational shift, a spiritual landmark, a living testimony of what obedience can unlock. This is why heaven laughed. Not because your step was impressive, but because your heart was aligned. Your obedience revealed readiness. Readiness for responsibility. Readiness for influence. Readiness for blessing. And readiness for the transfer that is already being released. Chosen one, you are walking into a chapter where you will see the purpose of every tear, every scar, every prayer, every sacrifice. Nothing was wasted. Nothing was forgotten. Everything was preparation for the moment heaven has now declared over your life. You are stepping into something bigger than breakthrough. You are stepping into destiny, chosen one. Now that heaven has shifted you into a destiny level season, there is a truth you must embrace with your whole spirit. Your life is entering a phase where the unseen will begin to command the seen. What is unfolding now is not coming from human strategy, earthly connections, or your own effort. It is coming from alignment. It is coming from obedience. It is coming from the spiritual authority you gained in the battles that almost broke you. Because when heaven elevates you, it does not ask for permission from the world. It simply moves and everything else must adjust. Chosen one, this next season of your life will not be defined by striving. You've done enough pushing, enough worrying, enough trying to make things happen. This is the season where destiny begins to rise to the surface on its own. Where the seeds you planted during your painful seasons begin to sprout in unexpected places. Where doors swing open because your name has been spoken in rooms you have never entered. Where the right people feel drawn to you without explanation. Where opportunities arrive without struggle because heaven has placed a spotlight over your assignment. But you must understand something sacred. When heaven shifts you upward, it also shifts your environment. That is why some things feel unstable. That is why certain connections feel different. That is why conversations that once fed you now feel empty. You are outgrowing what once held you. Your spirit is stretching beyond familiar spaces. And although your heart may feel the discomfort of leaving behind what was once home, your spirit knows that remaining would suffocate your destiny. Growth demands departure. You cannot rise while clinging to what belongs to your past self. Your next season requires a version of you that is emotionally lighter, spiritually sharper, and mentally clearer. That is why God has been detoxing your spirit, removing attachments, loosening your grip on old identities, exposing hidden motives in people around you, revealing what could not accompany you into the future. Chosen one, heaven is not taking things from you. Heaven is making room for what is coming. And something powerful is coming. A transfer, one that has been forming in the unseen for years, is drawing closer to your life. You can feel it even now, like a spiritual hum underneath your daily routine. You sense the weight of something that hasn't yet manifested, yet feels undeniably near. That is not imagination. It is spiritual foreshadowing. You are standing in the overlap between who you were and who you are becoming, between what hurt you and what will heal you, between what drained you and what will elevate you. The space between seasons is always the tightest, the heaviest, and the most emotionally confusing. But it is also the place where heaven does its deepest work. This is why your emotions may feel tender, why your discernment feels heightened, why your sleep has been strange or interrupted, why your dreams feel symbolic, why you feel an internal pull that you cannot fully explain. Your spirit is preparing itself for a new level of responsibility, because the blessing coming towards you is not a casual blessing. It is an assignment blessing. The kind of blessing that requires insight, courage, stewardship, and spiritual maturity. The kind of blessing that is not meant to sit in your hands, but flow through them. God is about to entrust you with influence, with visibility, with resources, with opportunities that carry eternal weight. And this is why your past had to be so difficult. The weight of what's coming demanded a depth of character that ease could never produce. You needed resilience. You needed clarity. You needed discernment. You needed compassion. You needed strength that no one could see but heaven could. And now that all those inner muscles have been developed, heaven can trust you with the kind of impact that outlives your lifetime. But chosen one, hear me. Impact invites opposition. Favor attracts resistance. Elevation reveals new enemies. Not because you did something wrong, but because spiritual authority disrupts darkness. When your light expands, shadows react. When your voice strengthens, old patterns try to resurface. When you rise, those unassigned to your next season begin to feel threatened. Do not let this intimidate you. Let it confirm your calling. The warfare you feel now is not the warfare of survival. It is the warfare of transition. You are not fighting to stay afloat. You are fighting to protect what heaven is giving you. And heaven is giving you much. This is the season where your name will be brought up in divine conversations, where the right doors will open at the right time, where supernatural alignment will orchestrate connections you could never create yourself, where long delayed provision will suddenly be released, where relationships that carry kingdom purpose will enter your sphere, where your work, your presence, your voice will have greater impact than anything you did in your past. But you must stay anchored, stay humble, stay obedient, stay surrendered. Influence without surrender leads to pride. Provision without wisdom leads to waste. Promotion without grounding leads to collapse. But influence with surrender becomes ministry. Provision with wisdom becomes legacy. Promotion with grounding becomes destiny. Chosen one, you are not stepping into a temporary blessing. You are stepping into a spiritual shift that will define the trajectory of your life. A shift orchestrated by heaven, accelerated by obedience, protected by God Himself. Everything is about to change. Not because you fought harder, but because you align deeper. You are not just entering a new season, you are entering your appointed season, chosen one. As you move deeper into this appointed season, you must begin to understand the spiritual engineering behind everything unfolding in your life. This elevation is not simply a rise in circumstances. It is a rise in identity, authority, and assignment. You are not just being blessed, you are being commissioned. Heaven is not only releasing favor to you, heaven is preparing to release favor through you. And once God decides to operate through your life, everything connected to you must shift to match that purpose. This is why your inner world has felt so different lately. Your desires are changing. Your priorities are realigning. Your spirit is craving depth, truth, and substance in ways you never did before. You may find that conversations which once entertained you now exhaust you. Relationships that once felt safe now feel limiting. And habits that once comforted you now feel like cages. This is not emotional inconsistency. This is spiritual transformation. Heaven is upgrading your internal world before it expands your external world. The most powerful spiritual shifts do not begin loudly. They begin quietly in subtle nudges, in sudden discomforts, in unexpected clarity, in moments where something inside you says, this is no longer who I am. Even before you can articulate who you are becoming, you are being prepared for influence. Not superficial influence, but kingdom influence. Influence that shifts atmospheres just by your presence. Influence that carries healing in your voice. Influence that breaks generational cycles simply because you have chosen obedience. Influence that does not depend on how many people see you, but on how much heaven trusts you. And heaven trusts you now in a way it did not before. Because obedience always elevates spiritual rank. You carry weight in the unseen realm. Darkness recognizes you. Resistance feels different because you are different. You pray differently. You discern differently. You walk differently. And because of this, 3 major spiritual shifts are unfolding in your life simultaneously. First, your awareness is increasing. You are noticing things you once walked past blindly. You sense intentions behind words. You feel energy before explanations. You recognize spiritual patterns long before they manifest in the physical. This is not fear. This is discernment. It is your safeguard in a season of elevation. Second, your identity is being redefined. You no longer resonate with the insecure, broken, or hesitant version of yourself. There is a strength rising inside you that you didn't realize you had gained. You are starting to see yourself the way heaven sees you, chosen, capable, refined, necessary, and spiritually mature. Your past no longer dictates your posture. Your wounds no longer shape your worth. You have stepped into a deeper understanding of who you truly are. Third, your assignment is expanding. Heaven is increasing the territory of your purpose. Your voice will begin to carry more weight even in casual conversations. People will begin to seek your counsel without understanding why. Your presence will expose truth in others. Some will be drawn to you because of the peace you carry. Others will feel unsettled because your growth reveals their stagnation. This is not arrogance. It is the natural effect of spiritual elevation. But with elevation comes a new relationship with solitude. When God enlarges your territory, He reduces your crowd. Some people were assigned only to your healing season, but not to your destiny season. Others were connected to your brokenness, not your breakthrough. And there are those who are comfortable with the weaker version of you, but cannot handle the stronger, wiser, more aligned version you have become. Their absence is not loss, it's alignment. But heaven never leaves a chosen one without support. As some people fall away, new individuals will be drawn toward you. People who carry light, wisdom, clarity, and purpose. People who challenge you spiritually. People who recognize your calling. People who speak to your future, not your past. They arrive not by coincidence, but by divine assignment. And as this realignment happens, your internal atmosphere will continue to shift. Your sensitivity to God will intensify. Your ability to hear His guidance will sharpen. You will begin to feel divine nudges with unusual clarity. When to move, when to wait, when to speak, when to stay silent. Heaven is training your spirit to operate on a higher frequency because what is coming requires precision, not guesswork. Chosen one, you're in the middle of a spiritual restructuring that is preparing you to carry what generations before you could not. The weight you feel is not heaviness, it is inheritance. What you sense is not pressure, it is purpose rising within you. You are evolving into the version of yourself that heaven always saw. And nothing about this transformation is accidental. You are being prepared for something extraordinary, something impactful, something that will leave a mark on more lives than you realize. Everything inside you is shifting because everything around you is about to shift. This is the season where heaven trains your spirit before heaven reveals your platform, chosen one. As your spirit adjusts to this higher frequency, you must understand that this next phase of your journey is not only about internal transformation, it is about external manifestation. Everything heaven has been cultivating inside you is preparing to move outward, shaping the world around you in ways you once thought were impossible for someone like you. You are stepping into a season where what you carry on the inside becomes visible, undeniable, and uncontainable. The light in you is no longer allowed to stay hidden. The authority in you is no longer allowed to stay quiet. The calling on your life is no longer allowed to sit dormant beneath fear or hesitation. Heaven has waited for this version of you. And now that you have arrived, the shift cannot be reversed. You may already feel the tension of this unfolding. There is a sense that your spirit is ahead of your circumstances, pulling your life into alignment like a magnet drawing iron. You may feel as if something is preparing to break open, yet you cannot fully see it. That is because manifestation always begins in the realm of the unseen. When heaven moves, your physical world needs time to rearrange itself around the new reality God has spoken over you. Expect strange patterns. Expect unusual conversations. Expect unexpected opportunities. Expect sudden clarity. Expect people to show up at precise moments with the exact words, resources, or confirmation your spirit needs. These are not coincidences. They are orchestrations. Chosen one, you are being ushered into a phase where your presence itself becomes a sign. The atmosphere will shift around you because you carry heaven's frequency. People will respond differently to you, sometimes without knowing why. Some will be drawn sensing peace in you that they lack within themselves. Others will be intimidated, sensing truth in you that confronts the lies they still live under. Do not let either reaction confuse you. You are awakening something in others simply by becoming who you were always meant to be. In this season, heaven will begin to illuminate the gifts that were buried beneath survival. Gifts you dismissed, gifts you downplayed, gifts you forgot. You are going to find yourself doing things naturally that others would struggle to accomplish. Ideas will flow easier, solutions will appear faster, creativity will come alive. Your spirit will feel guided as if heaven has placed invisible markers on your path. This is part of your divine rewiring. You are functioning according to your original design, not the damaged version of yourself that life tried to mold. But here, this clearly manifestation requires courage, not the loud, dramatic kind of courage the world celebrates, but the quiet bravery it takes to trust God beyond your comfort zone. Courage to take steps without having all the details. Courage to release what no longer fits. Courage to walk through doors you once felt unqualified to enter. Courage to say yes when your mind still remembers old failures. Courage to believe what heaven says about you even when your history argues otherwise. This courage is now a necessity because heaven will not force you into your destiny. Heaven will lead you, but you must follow. Chosen one. You must also prepare for the reality that not everyone will understand this transformation. Some people will cling to an outdated version of you. They will expect you to shrink to fit their comfort. They will try to pull you back into old roles, old behaviors, old dynamics because your evolution disrupts the narratives they built around you. Do not dim yourself to ease their discomfort. You have paid too high a price in obedience, surrender, and suffering to stay small for anyone. Those who are meant for your next season will celebrate your growth, not fear it. This phase of manifestation is also deeply tied to the divine transfer already in motion over your life. What heaven is placing in your hands is not random blessing. It is strategic equipping. Some of the breakthroughs coming your way are not answers. They are assignments. They are tools heaven will use through you to build, restore, influence, heal, and shift the lives of others. You are stepping into resource-level purpose. You will not only have enough for yourself, you will have enough to overflow into the lives of those God connects to your mission. With this increase comes spiritual responsibility. You must protect your peace, your clarity, your voice, your focus. You must guard your environment more closely. You must filter what feeds your spirit what drains your energy and what distracts your mind. Heaven is enlarging you, and enlargement requires discipline. You cannot pour from a depleted spirit. You cannot lead from an anxious heart. You cannot serve from an empty well. Chosen one, everything in your life is preparing to accelerate your relationships, your finances, your opportunities, your influence, your purpose. But acceleration without discernment becomes chaos, and acceleration with discernment becomes destiny. You are stepping into the kind of movement that only happens once in a lifetime, the kind that redefines paths, rewrites identity, and recalibrates future generations. This is why heaven has been so intentional with your preparation. This is why your process was so painful and so precise. Now you must rise into the fullness of who you are becoming. The time for hesitation has ended. The time for shrinking has expired. The time for second-guessing is over. Heaven is calling you forward with a voice your spirit can no longer ignore. This is your moment of unveiling. What has been forming in silence is about to be revealed in power. Chosen one, as you step into this final stretch of awakening, you must understand that everything your spirit has endured, everything heaven has whispered, everything your journey has been shaping, has been leading you to this threshold. You are standing at the edge of a divine unveiling. Not the unveiling of a blessing alone, but the unveiling of you, the real you, the chosen you, the anointed you, the you that heaven has been cultivating in the hidden places. And now the hidden work is about to become a visible reality. There's a stirring in the spirit around your name. You may not hear it with natural ears, but your spirit senses it. A gentle pull, a heightened awareness, a sudden clarity, a quiet boldness rising from within. It is the internal evidence that heaven is aligning every layer of your story. You are walking into a chapter where your spirit will feel more alive, more decisive, more guided, and more anchored than ever before. Even your intuition is changing. It is more precise, more sensitive, more connected to God's leading. This is not an emotional shift. This is a spiritual activation. Chosen one. Seasons like this only come after long journeys of obedience. There were moments when you thought God was silent. Moments when you assumed nothing was shifting. Moments when your prayers felt unanswered. But heaven was never inactive. Heaven was studying your endurance. Heaven was strengthening your roots. Heaven was preparing your capacity. Breakthroughs of this magnitude do not fall on unprepared shoulders. And now that you have shown heaven your readiness, heaven is releasing what your past version could not have carried. This next phase of your story will be marked by evidence. Evidence of healing in your emotions. Evidence of growth in your decision making. Evidence of maturity in your reactions. Evidence of wisdom in your choices. Evidence of strength in your boundaries. Evidence of divine favor in your opportunities. The inward transformation you've been nurturing, often in silence, often in tears, will begin to show itself in the physical world in undeniable ways. But more than evidence, this season will bring confirmation. God will confirm the things your spirit long suspected but your mind could hardly articulate. Confirmation through circumstances. Confirmation through unexpected alignment. Confirmation through divine timing so precise it will leave you speechless. Confirmation through people who speak life into parts of you that have been buried for years. You will realize that the things you thought were coincidences were actually signatures of God's careful orchestration. Chosen one in this new dimension. You will also notice a rise in your spiritual authority. You will speak differently, not louder, but clearer. You will discern differently, not suspiciously, but accurately. You will move differently, not hastily, but purposefully. And your presence will begin to influence the emotional and spiritual climate around you. When you enter a room, clarity will enter with you. When you speak, peace will accompany your words. When you pray, things will shift. This is the effect of spiritual maturity wrapped in divine assignment. There is also a transformation happening in your confidence. Not worldly confidence, but a quiet, holy confidence that comes from knowing who walks with you. You will stop negotiating your worth. You will stop explaining your calling. You will stop apologizing for your anointing. You will no longer dim your light for rooms that prefer darkness. You will no longer silence your voice for people committed to misunderstanding you. You will stand not in arrogance, but in alignment. And chosen one, you must prepare for the most surprising part of this season reversal. Heaven is about to reverse some things that were spoken over you, done to you, or stolen from you. What was unfair will be redeemed. What was delayed will be accelerated. What was crooked will be straightened. What was hidden will be revealed. What was lost will be restored in a form greater than what you imagined. Reversal is heaven's way of saying, your story will not end the way the enemy expected. This reversal won't just touch your circumstances. It will touch your identity. You will no longer see yourself as the survivor. You will see yourself as the carrier of a mantle. You will no longer see yourself as someone who barely made it. You will see yourself as someone chosen to transform what others thought was unchangeable. Your life itself will become prophetic evidence that God wastes nothing. Chosen one, you are closer than you think. The rising pressure, the emotional sensitivity, the sudden clarity, these are signs that your spirit is stepping into alignment with a future that has already been written. Heaven is not preparing the blessing. Heaven is preparing you to receive it without fear, misuse, or hesitation. You are stepping into a moment where every previous chapter, every heartbreak, every test, every silence, every spiritual wrestling begins to make sense. The pieces are coming together. The timing is aligning. The purpose is emerging, and heaven is whispering over your life. Now this is the moment. Chosen one. Hear this with all the depth of your spirit. That quiet decision you made in secret, the one no one saw, no one acknowledged, has already stirred heaven. What felt small to you has become a melody in the throne room. God himself laughed with delight. Heaven rejoiced. The angels leaned in. Why? Because in a world that bends to pressure, you stood firm in obedience. In a generation chasing applause, you chose surrender. And that is rare. You did the hard thing. You did the right thing. You did the faithful thing. And heaven took notice. You did not move crowds, chosen one, but you moved the heart of God. Now, as you walk into your next season, rise with your head held high. Walk like one who has been marked by heaven, because you are seen, you are honored, you are celebrated. The supernatural transfer that has been in motion is now responding to your obedience. Your Kairos moment is here, the appointed time where the promises of God intersect with your faith. The reward is on its way. Your breakthrough is near. Your joy will overflow. Your provision, your influence, and your favor are aligning exactly as heaven intended. Remain faithful. Remain aligned with the flow of the anointing. And continue to steward the gifts God has entrusted to you. Step forward in gratitude, knowing that what you are about to receive is ordained, unavoidable, and eternal. Declare it, receive it, and embrace it with confidence. Chosen one, the world may not understand, but heaven is fully aware, and God is well pleased. Share this revelation with those whose hearts are ready, so they too may walk in the joy, favor, and fulfillment of their divine assignment.